Well, time now is 7:17, and having a fulfilling love life can involve a lot more than just getting physical. It really is about connecting with someone. So this morning, according to Dr. Kanwal Bawa, she's joining us this morning. She is an intimacy expert, sexual wellness doctor, and TikTok personality as well. Dr. Bawa, good morning to you.
Thank you so much for having me back.
So I'm wondering, let's first dive into this from a male-female perspective and the whole Mars and Venus. Is it different as far as the connection is concerned for men and women, and which would ultimately lead to a better love life?
Well, that's a great question. I think at the risk of generalizing, I'll have to say that for men, intimacy begins with more of a physical connection, and for women, it's more in the mind. So men need to be touched more and women need to feel appreciated more for the most part.
So it's an interesting cycle, right? Because women need the emotional to get physical, men need the physical to get emotional. So how do we come in the middle to meet everybody, to meet both partners' needs?
I think like everything else in life, compromise and consideration for your partner is critical. Unless your partner feels appreciated, whether it's a rub on the back, whether it's a discussion about how their day went, I think there's a need to connect. And I think with modern technology, it's a blessing and a curse. I think we have access to more information than we ever did, yet we are more disconnected than we ever were. So sometimes, perhaps at the end of the day, it involves putting your smartphone down and talking to your partner. Perhaps it means finding out what they are happy or unhappy about. And sometimes it just means quality time away from home.
You know, I guess it comes down to also understanding the person's love language and meeting their needs so that eventually the physical, does it just naturally follow? Is that fair to say?
Absolutely. And I feel that this is something I have addressed on my podcast, Dr. Sex Fairy, because I think there's a need for communication and there's a need for honesty from doctors like me about the topic. And I think so many factors determine this, not just one or two. And like you said, love languages are a very critical issue. What matters to one person may not matter so much to another person. And this is where the communication comes in again. You have to have those conversations, tough as they might be.
The other thing, too, is, you know, speaking of love languages and the difference, I suppose, too, there has to be an unselfishness about it, just because, as you said, it's not important to you. If it's important to your partner, it should be important to you, right?
Absolutely. And discounting their needs and being dismissive or condescending about them or making fun of them is not going to help anybody. And it's certainly not going to help you if they don't feel validated. And I think validation, that sense of feeling like you matter, is so critical because remember, what happens in the bedroom starts with what's happening in your mind.
That's really great advice. So let me talk about sometimes what can be the awkward conversation about what's going on in the bedroom. How do you broach that if maybe you feel uncomfortable talking about it with your partner, about what works for you, what doesn't work for you?
You know, the pleasure gap is a real thing. Men are a lot more satisfied in the bedroom than women are. And unfortunately, I will play the devil's advocate. We are not helping our situation any by pretending. So we are fostering a very unhealthy and almost toxic in some cases situation because we are validating something that is not working. And so we are cheating our partner in that sense because I would like to think that our partners want to help us achieve the satisfaction we are looking for as well. So women need to start being more honest with their men about what does and doesn't work, because that helps everyone and that helps the relationship as a whole. Honesty truly is the best policy. May not be the easiest, but it helps in the long run.
So no matter how uncomfortable it is, honesty, honesty, honesty. Tell us where we can find you on TikTok.
Well, my TikTok account, surprisingly, over the last couple of months, I went on it as a social experiment, and 25 million views later, it's turned into quite the sensation. I can be found at Dr. Sex Fairy, Dr. Sex Fairy.
Okay, excellent. Dr. Bawa, it's so great to have this conversation with you. I appreciate your candor because a lot of us don't want to talk about it, but it's a conversation, lots of conversations we all need to have amongst our partners.
Well, absolutely. Absolutely. And the thing is that in my medical practice, Bawa Medical in Boca Raton, Florida, I found that until couples start talking about what is affecting them, all my treatments, exceptional as they are, cannot have their full effect. And that's why the podcast and my podcast, Dr. Sex Fairy, and the TikTok account, Dr. Sex Fairy, began.
Excellent. Dr. Bawa, thank you for your time this morning.
Thank you for having me back.